Welcome to the Elevated Trader Podcast. I am Dr. Kristin Kidgel.
And I am Tracy Ball. Join us every week as we journey into becoming better traders.
We believe becoming better traders involves elevating our skill, mindset, and our health. In each episode, we will discuss the current book we are exploring, and we invite you to join us on this journey.
Are you ready to elevate your trading, mindset, and health to the next level? Let's do this. All right, welcome everyone to Man's Search for Meaning, Part 1. How's it going, Kristin?
It's going great, Tracy. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
I'm good. I'm glad to be on another book.
Yeah, me too.
And I have to say that Man's Search for Meaning, this one was one of my picks, and I'll tell you why. I read this probably 30 some years ago, and I won't go into the details of where I was in my life, but it wasn't in a very good place. And something in this book, and I don't remember what it was, but something in this book, I just remember that it was this book, changed my life forever. And it probably one of the reasons I'm still here today. So let's just go with that. It has a special place in my heart, and that's why we're reading it. It is a bit of a dark book. There's no question, because the topic itself is a stain on humanity. I've got to say that. I just want to come back a little bit and re-emphasize the reason that we're even doing this, okay? Because this whole podcast thing and doing the reading, my whole goal, and I think yours is in line with mine, is really to provoke thought with every book. And I've talked about this in a couple episodes before, about approaching a book with intention to get as much as you can out of it, the value that you can get out of it, regardless of whether or not it's a word for word, or it might not even be directly related to the book. It just could be, you read a line and you get into a discussion with somebody and it creates a new world for you. It creates a new direction for you. And that's what I want to see happening. And I'm hoping that through this process, you, myself, our listeners, we can all find a new passion for learning and a new passion for reading. And that's really what it comes down to.
I love it.
So this book, just a little bit of a recap for those that haven't read it, or for those that maybe have read it and haven't read it in a while.
That would be me. I had no idea what I was getting into, didn't know what it was about. And here I am reading this book and I'm like, okay.
It's a catchy title, isn't it?
It's a very catchy title.
So Man's Search for Meaning was written by Viktor E. Frankl, and he is a survivor, one of the very few survivors of Auschwitz. And for those of you that don't know what Auschwitz is, that's a concentration camp where most of the people ended up being exterminated. And it, like I said, is a stain on humanity.
During the Holocaust.
Yeah, during the Holocaust. And I don't want to get into the details, necessarily about the Holocaust. And that's not what we're going to be discussing here. That's not the point. And even Viktor Frankl says that that's not the point of the book. There's been tons and tons and tons of books written about this, factual books. This really isn't about that. And one of the things that he says right off the bat is he who has a why to live for can bear almost any blow. Any blow. And that's a Nietzsche quote. But what he talks about here is Frankl's concern is less with the question of why most died than it is with the question of why anyone at all survived, because the conditions were so astronomical. So my point, or the point that I think Frankl is trying to make here, is that when you're reading this book and you're approaching this book, I think too many people look at trauma and they get, or any kind of a story, and they look at the events and it draws up feelings of compassion, feelings of pity, feelings of, like this could never happen to me, right? None of that. And they miss the lesson of the actual journey. They miss the lesson of the experience. And I believe that Viktor Frankl's true purpose for this book is to really help people dive in deep and say, okay, yes, these were terrible circumstances, but let's look at what it was to succeed, what it was to actually make it through to the other side. What did it take to survive such terrible circumstances? And from my recollection 30 years ago, that's what I think what I took out of it was, what does it take to get to the other side? What does it take to get through whatever darkness I was going through at the time? When you started this book, because you're a little bit further ahead, did you grasp that right off the bat? Did you catch that that's kind of his intent with this book?
Probably not right out of the gate, even though he was saying that in the beginning. I didn't really know what the heck he was really going to be talking about. I was just getting the gist of it. So a little bit. It was when I got a little further in that I was understanding what he was trying to do and get across to the reader. So, and I'm not very far in the book.
Gotcha.
Well, let me say this. The small amount that I have read so far, I've already brought up in conversation with other people. I'm reading this book. It's about this, but it's really not about this. It's about, and I don't want to give everything away that because I haven't read that far. I mean, I know the gist of what's going to be ahead, but not knowing, I have no specifics, but it's definitely thought-provoking. I mean, I've already been talking about it, over dinner. I think it was just even last night.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Now, the first part of the book is his story. His story is his experience in Auschwitz. And the second half is about logotherapy. Now, he puts a quote in here or says something that, life is a quest for meaning. That's really what life is. And suffering without meaning is just suffering. There's pointless. You need to be able to find meaning in order to value, I guess, or to be able to really justify the suffering. Otherwise, it's just pointless. And so that's the basis of logotherapy, is the idea of everyone kind of needs a reason to get up in the morning. And then whatever that reason might be, however you determine that, whether it be a belief in a deity or whether that belief is in something else or work or whatever, there's just something outside of yourself that's greater than yourself that gives you that drive to get up and keep going. That pursuit of life's meaning. And that's why I think that the title itself is so catchy, and probably one of the reasons that I actually picked the book up to begin with to read, right? He says in there that for success, like happiness, cannot be pursued. It must ensue, and only does so as the unintended side effect of one's dedication to a cause greater than oneself, or as the byproduct of one's surrender to a passion other than oneself. What does that mean to you?
Well, you have to understand that I've read some of this, but in my mind, I can't directly answer that right away, because in my mind, what's rolling around is, well, there's steps that lie underneath that. You can have this purpose and you can wake up every day and you have this purpose and mission and drive. But it's what I was catching from him is, okay, the little steps, the little pieces. It's almost like a self-regulation where you're like, ooh, I'm in a bad situation right here. I've got a couple choices. Which direction am I going to go as far as pretty much mindset? Because that mindset will lead you into the path of in his case, survival. So, I mean, I can agree. And I guess that's why that's rolling around in my head is, okay, I may not be in the best situation right now, in your life, in my life, or whatever. Someone may not be in the best situation in your life, but how are you going to look at it right now? How are you going to find happiness in this mess? And to me, that's a survival skill.
Yeah, I would agree. It's definitely a survival skill for sure. I think what I get when I hear this is very much, I mean, this is probably a more complicated way of saying some of the things that we've heard many times, which is you need to have your why. Mm-hmm. What's your why? When you pursue something, you have a big why and you're doing something and it's on the same journey, or it's in tandem with that why. If they're running in parallel, that's where happiness and success start to fall. It's when you're not moving in the direction of your why, when you're not moving in the direction of your purpose, when you're not moving in the same direction, you're actually working against it. You're bypassed, you're distracted, you're diverted, you're on a different course. That's when happiness and success just it's not coming your way, because they're not aligned. Your life journey has to be aligned with your purpose and your why. And then when that happens, I think that's when you start to really find that happiness and success start to fall, and it becomes a byproduct of your actions, a byproduct of what you're doing.
I feel like one of the things humanity and most of us are doing and need to hear this multiple times is to rectify and have, again, it's back to self-regulation of thought and circumstance. If you're doing something and it just rubs you the wrong way or it brings some unhappiness, then you have to stop for a minute and identify what about this is not working for me. What about this is bringing this irritation to me? Maybe someone else is really enjoying that, but I'm not enjoying it. Mm-hmm. Or this is not making me feel right. Or I feel like that's that little intuitive nudge of maybe you should be going over there. And then, oh yeah, well, what's the opposite of that? Well, the opposite of that, that's not feeling so good and is not making me very happy. Well, that's over here. And so when you're following those cues, I feel I have this vision of like almost like a ping pong or like bowling with those bumpers in the alley, right? Where you're like, boink, oh, no, back to center. But what we tend to do, I feel like, is we ignore what doesn't feel good and we stick in it and we stay in it and we're there longer. And then before you know it, it's like years have gone by.
Absolutely true. I think going forward with this book, I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities to really learn how to persevere. A lot of opportunities really on how to rise above, because that's the whole point of the book, right? Is to figure out what you can do to, first of all, maintain your humanity, and the second thing is to actually survive everything that comes your way, right?
Ooh, and it's going to be good.
It is. It's going to be really good. So one of the things that I really like about the book is, and I can't remember, I haven't come across it yet, but there's one thing that people can take your body. They can break your bones. They can take away all your belongings. They can do all of those things. But one thing they can't do is strip you of your dignity. They can't strip you of your thoughts. You have to give those away. And that was one of the other takeaways that I've had from this book before that I've stuck with, right? For that to happen, you're actually giving that away. And being in any type of trauma at all, doesn't matter what. It doesn't even have to be trauma. It could just be a negative experience in your life that it only turns negative if you let it. If you give up, you've got control over your responses. You've got control over your actions. You've got control over your thinking patterns. And so anyone can do anything they want to you. Doesn't matter. It only really has an effect on you when you give them the power of what's up here. Right?
I love it.
So I'm looking forward to that. So stay tuned for the next episode, you guys.
See ya. Thank you for joining us today. For more information about the show, as well as our list of current reads, check us out at www.theelevatedtrader.com.
Remember to subscribe and share if you found value in today's episode. See you next week.